Hey, rookies, and welcome back to the Rookie Farmer Podcast. You know it. This is the home of the dreamers, the schemers, and the hustlers here in the world of small scale agriculture. I am your illustrious host. My name is Alec Smith, and I'm also the grower here at Crop Culture Farm in New Bern, Georgia. All right, everybody. This is another one coming at you, same time every month with another farm vlog episode. I believe this puts us at episode number 6 of the farm vlogs. This was sort of something that initially was a bit of a filler, just something to sort of add another episode into the mix between interviews, and I've really come to enjoy them. It's a good way to get stuff off my chest. It's a good way to sort of get my thoughts out there, and hopefully you guys are enjoying them as well. And we are also, this is episode 17. We are in the middle of June at this point. I can't believe that we're still going strong. I think we've passed the record of what most podcasts do, which is like 3 or 4 episodes. So we're 17 episodes in. We only have, 4,000 more to go if we're going to keep up with all the other big boys doing podcasts. I hope that we can do this show forever and always. So if you have guests that you would like to hear from, if there are farmers that you know of, or industry folks that you know of, or anybody that touches agriculture that you think would be an amazing person to talk to. One, you can just suggest people in the comments. I know some of you guys have done that, but also if you know of people, have them get in touch with us. CC me in an email and kind of connect us together. That is a much easier way of doing that than just saying, hey, you should talk to such and such. And then I have to do the hard work of hunting down an email for them and then making sort of like a cold call or reach out, a cold email to them and hope that they respond and it doesn't just go into a junk folder. Because honestly, there's a lot of emails I send out to companies and I send out to other people that I don't have a direct contact for. And a lot of times they don't respond, whether it's because they don't want to respond or it just gets lost in the shuffle. I don't know. But if there's somebody that you think would be a good fit for this show, that you would want to hear from and you think other farmers would want to hear from, please consider connecting us together on social media, in an email. You can CC me, cropculturefarm@gmail.com, and connect us with some amazing growers or contact a grower and say, you should reach out to this guy. He has a podcast. I love listening to it. And I think that you guys would have an amazing conversation because, like I say in every episode, I can't do this without you guys. And I want to ensure that we can do this forever and always. And the reality of it is sometimes it feels like I may run out of guests one day and we're only halfway through the first year of doing this. And if I'm already feeling like we're going to run out of guests, then we definitely have some work to be done to find some more amazing people. Now, there'll always be new rookies. There'll always be tons of veteran farmers that we can talk to. But if there's people that are near and dear to your heart that you think would be a good fit, please do a little bit of the heavy lifting for us and reach out to them or connect us so that we can keep pumping out amazing content for you guys. Because it's all for you at the end of the day. I'm not just doing a podcast because I like to hear myself talk. I am giving the information out to you guys so that we can all become better growers, that we can all become better farmers together. All right. So we'll do a little bit of a farm update, and then I want to dive in to a little bit of a more specific topic revolving around soil health and pest pressure on our farm. And hopefully it'll be insightful for you guys as well. But right out of the gate, it's the middle of June and all of the summer stuff is jamming. We are swimming in yellow squash. We're swimming in zucchini. Tomatoes are just starting. Peppers are just starting or picking the padrones. Eggplant are coming up. And it feels like a little bit of a hurricane at the moment. This is the one time of year that everyone loves, where you get to eat all of the amazing stuff off the farm, fresh tomatoes, amazing little padrone peppers that you can just snack on all day long, eating green beans while you're picking them. The amount of things that are enjoyable to eat this time of year is infinite because it's essentially everything. It's these fruiting crops that are really delicious and really abundant. And so you don't have to feel bad for, eating your weight in green beans while you're picking them because there's more than enough to go around. But I will say with all of that abundance comes a lack of time. And man, does it feel like we have a lack of time. Like I know this is the busy time of the year. I know this is when I'm probably pulling the most hours that we will pull throughout the season. But I think what's the hardest part about this time of the year is not necessarily just that we work hard, that we work long hours. Let's be honest. If you're a farmer, that's not really anything new. That's not anything that's different from most other days. Working long hours, working really hard. That's part of the reason why we do it. We love to be outside, love to get the sunshine, love to get a good sweat on. But what's tough about this time of the year, as opposed to some of the others, is that right now it really feels like the farm controls me as opposed to me controlling the farm. Now, what do I mean by that? Let's say spring, fall, definitely in wintertime, I'm in control. I'm deciding what's going where. And these days, we're going to do a little bit of maintenance and let's get these beds planned out so that we can get stuff in the ground, and then we know we've got a big harvest day on Friday. So everything leading up to Friday, let's knock out all these other tasks. So Friday, we can just be dedicated to harvest for the farmer's market. Not this time of year. This time of year, stuff's needing to be picked every other day or with certain things every day. Now, in past years, I have tried to stick to a every other day schedule for a lot of our harvesting, things like yellow squash, zucchini, cucumbers, those sort of things. And part of that is just simply because of the way that I was taught, the other places I've worked at. An every other day cadence seemed to sort of work, and when you're selling higher volumes of stuff, the weight that you're selling is really important. So you want to make sure you have nice, full, ripe stuff that you're selling. And last year we did most of that. But if I'm honest with you, our squash and zucchini harvests last year were pretty abysmal between things like squash vine borers and fungal diseases in our soil. We really struggled to have those curcubits really thrive well for us. We also had a lot of pest pressure in the cucumbers, like pickleworm, so on and so forth, cabbage or cucumber beetle. But this year we are swimming in it, and that means that we are experimenting with picking every single day. Now you might ask, Alec, doesn't that just seems like a lot of extra work? If you can pick every other day, why would you choose to pick every day? And the reality of it is everybody at market has squash. Everybody else has it, and they have way more than I do. And so what that means is I need to find a way to differentiate myself, and I need to ensure that the 400-foot beds of zucchini and summer squash that I have currently are going to be as absolutely profitable as possible, and that there's going to be zero waste, zero baseball bat sized zucchinis that are just going to get put into my fridge or, distributed amongst the neighbors. We really can't afford to have any seconds if we can avoid it. And by differentiating ourselves, if everyone else has your standard size yellow squash and we show up with nice, petite, really tender squash, it's just another way for us to differentiate ourselves. And so we have chosen to opt for picking every single day. Does that add a lot of extra work? Absolutely. But the nice thing is it also is a little bit easier to manage because we're theoretically harvesting about half as much every single day. So where maybe we would have 60, 70 pounds of squash every other day, we're coming in right about that 30, 40 pound mark every day, which is still an amazing abundance of squash. And by that heavy picking, I'm hoping that it leads to even more increased production into new fruit every time we take one off the plant. But it's a lot more easier on my end being one person to manage harvesting and then cleaning and then packing and storing 30 to 40 pounds a day as opposed to double that every other day. And then I can also sell that product at a premium price to our chefs because I can sell them the petite squash, the baby zucchini, which is much more of what they prefer. And based upon the prices that they're being charged for those sort of things, I know that I can also charge a premium for those sort of things because they are more specialized, they are higher quality, nice and tender, really good stuff. Like I said, instead of sending those giant baseball bat sized zucchinis. But all that being said, back to the original thing we were talking about is that because we're picking every single day, there is no time off. There is no like, I can't do it tonight. I'll go do it tomorrow. We experimented with that a little bit. We had a trip into town for some stuff. We had some events that we had to be at, and I didn't get back to the farm in time to be able to pick all of the stuff that needed to be picked. And I thought, you know what? I'm not gonna do it today. I'll do it tomorrow. And man, did I regret it. Cucumbers were huge and sort of oversized and too watery. Once again, giant zucchini baseball bats. Yellow squash began to rub up against leaves and it gets the scrapes and the scars in them, so on and so forth. The peas get overdone and then they're no longer edible. The list goes on and on and on of all the things that we missed out on because we didn't hit those picking windows. So the reality of it is we're in a time of year right now, and it's only getting more intense. Figs are just around the corner. Green beans are coming on strong. All of these different things. It's not just two or three things that we have to pick every single day, but we're coming into the next 2 or 3 months where everything will be picked just about, at least every 2 to maybe 3 days. I might be able to get away with every 3 days with things like figs. The reality of it is if we keep getting the rains that we're having, it's going to have to be every single day just to keep from those things exploding. Man, those figs do not love the rain. They're more of a Mediterranean climate adjusted plant. And when we get these super sopping wet early summers here that we're having this year, then those things just ooze and then explode before they ever even fully ripen. You can tell that I'm just like at my at my wit's end, just being so busy and so tired as we're sort of planning and just trying to keep up with everything that's going on this summer. It's been a lot, and we're just getting started. Things are really gonna keep cooking. Now, hopefully, if things play out the way they tend to play out, then the second half of summer will chill out. The rains will slow down. It'll dry up. It'll be hotter than all get out. Oh my God. I'll be wishing for some rain. But hopefully things will slow down a little bit so that we can take a little bit of a breather. But right now, the farm is controlling us, both in harvesting things, but also the weeds, mowing the grass around the farm. You know, if any of you guys have any growing experience, you know exactly what I'm talking about, where it's go time. There's no time to fix things. There's no time to really try to plan. All the planning needs to have been done. All of the repairs need to have been made. And this is grow time. So that's where we're at sort of with the summer. Now, on the market side of things, the farmer's market is jamming, y'all. We have finally hit our stride. One thing I really like about doing this is that I get a chance to just be completely honest, get to be just completely transparent with you guys about where we're at sales wise, what have been some of the wins, what have been some of the losses. And I may have mentioned this on the last farm vlog. I cannot remember. But, one of the issues that we had was the winter was such a strong market. We were doing so well. There was like no competition. Then we got into March and things just like nosedived. All of the farmers came back. It was just a little slower. And I really wondered if I was regretting my decision switching markets instead of just riding it out and making it work with what we had going on. And then April slowly began to tick up, get a little bit better. Sales started increasing. We had more stuff coming in. And then, man, if you look at the income statements and you look at all the stuff in the bookkeeping software between April and May, it is almost double. We have essentially doubled our sales for the month of May as what we did in April, where we were averaging about $700 to $900 a week in sales. We're now averaging somewhere between 13 to 15 a week in sales between the restaurants and the farmers market and some other non-market retail sales that we're doing. And so things have really increased. It's been absolutely phenomenal to be able to have the income, because the reality of it is we need that income in so that we can keep buying stuff. We have to buy more seed. We have to buy more fertilizer. We need to buy shade cloths so that we don't worry about our tomatoes just crapping out on us in July like they did last year. And so, as exciting as it is to make more money, I'm also being faced with the reality that it just means that's more capital. It's not necessarily more money in my pocket, it's more capital in the business so that we can continue to reinvest in the business so that next year and the year after and every year moving forward that we can continue to become more and more profitable so that this can be a real sustainable full-time business that supports my family. Yeah, but back to what I was saying, the market is really picking up. Could be a mix of what we have. There's some things like broccolini that I always talk about that nobody else has, and we're bringing a good amount. We're basically selling out at the very end of the market. Carrots are still really jamming, and then you throw a lot of those summer crops. We got snap peas that just finished; those have sold really well. Obviously, squash, zucchini, cucumber, and then we're coming into tomato season with peppers and eggplant and green beans and all the amazing stuff that we have. Hopefully, this will continue. And with these warmer days, sun coming up sooner, there's just been a much more vital energy at the market. People are alive, people are awake, they're coming out early, and they're shopping with us. So I am super, super grateful for where things are going at with the farmers market. And then obviously, having an overabundance of certain crops means that we can offer more to the restaurants. So, like, not only is our farmers market sales increasing while the restaurant sales have sort of stayed the same, but essentially everything is increasing. We've gone up almost 50% in the farmers market sales, and then I would say maybe an additional 15 to 30%, just depending on the week, in restaurant sales, which has been really awesome. So everything's pretty much gone up, and I'm in the process right now of looking at maybe starting some sort of a not a farmers market, a farm market stand, something that people can come and shop from during the week, stop by the farm. There's a lot of logistics things to figure out. Is it just a self-serve that's open all the time, even if I'm not there? Is it only open during certain hours when I am there? Do I interact with customers? Is it pre-order? So on and so forth. But just trying to build as many sales funnels as possible to then open up the opportunity to produce more. Obviously, there's a fine line. You can overproduce and then forced to get creative with where you're going to sell it and maybe not sell it at the profit margins that you want it to, or you could overcommit and then you can't fulfill it and then you're just getting sloppy and so on and so forth. But for right now, we're just trying to sort of steadily increase those sales, keep those things going, and sort of hit that sustainable roughly $1,500 a week, somewhere in that like 4,000 to $5,000 a month is ideally really where we want to be to see some sort of like projected sustainability with the business. And so those are just the realities where the numbers are. If you can live on less and you can run your business on less, then more power to you. Way to go having a nice lean business. If it takes more for you to do it, dude, I get it. And there's probably things that you're investing in that I probably should be. And I'm probably a little too lean in some places. So, but we're all on a spectrum. We're all sort of varied in how we're doing it. And we have different situations, different financial needs, and different infrastructure needs. But I just love being able to be completely transparent with the numbers with you guys. It keeps me honest. It gives you realistic expectations of what you can be doing a couple years into growing. And we're able to teach the next generation of people that are coming up. Here's what you can expect. Now, another big shift that has happened on the farm over the last month or so is where I'm going to say this is going to be sacrosanct. Some of you guys who have followed over from the no-till space might be screaming into your phones right now or shouting at YouTube, but we're experimenting with some tillage on the farm. Oh no, no-till farm is using tillage. What are we going to do? Cancel him now. His podcast is no good. Revoke his farmer card from him. Whatever you want to do. Let me explain why we are actually moving to a hybridized low till system, at least currently on our farm. So just to step back, when we first got onto the property, we started making beds. We would fertilize and then take the tiller through and sort of do like an initial tillage, and then we're mounding up the beds, and then boom, we're done. And then everything after that was just broad fork, maybe some stirrup hoeing, and then we were able to get a small walk behind tiller, and we're doing like a light tilth, just a couple inches on the top, just to sort of get a nice prepped bed to transplant into or to direct seed into. And something that I noticed this year that I didn't really notice much last year was that we were seeing some serious issues that I can only attribute to a real lack of fertility in the soil. Things like arugula, things like kale, not necessarily the heaviest feeders, but not really light feeders either, but things that are definitely leafy greens that will definitely tell you if things are off. And pretty quickly in the spring this year, I started noticing like, man, the arugula is like yellowing really quickly, or it's just struggling to thrive. Kale isn't getting very big. It's putting out a lot of leaf growth, but they're really pale green and their plants aren't getting very big compared to what I'm seeing at the other farms. And have more or less narrowed it down to the fact that fertility is just not really getting into the root zone. At this point, are not really doing a lot of deep composting, mostly just because of a lack of time and resource. The amount of time that it takes to mulch a 100-foot bed with 2 inches of compost. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of time. Even when I have my helper there with me. And so the reality of it is we've kind of moved to more of an amending level of compost, sort of mixing it in a little bit here and there as we do our tilth when we add some of our fertilizer, trying to use it more as like an inoculating or a feeding compost as opposed to like true mulching, growing substrate type compost. And started seeing these issues. And funny enough, they were on the earlier beds, the beds that were started last year. And really, it was you kind of knowing where I started on one end and working toward the other way, that it was like the earlier the bed, the worse it was growing right now. Which theoretically, the earlier the bed, it should have more fertilizer because it's been through more rotations, it's been fertilized more. And sort of after really thinking about it and observing the conditions and just sort of trying to use my intuition, I came to the conclusion that even though I'm broad forking and then fertilizing kind of into those cracks and into the holes from broad fork, I'm not really getting a good mix of fertility into the deeper parts of that root zone of the soil. Probably have a super fertile top layer, getting a really great germination on stuff's growing up. And then as soon as those roots start to go down, they just stop. It could be my clays, could be a lot of different things, which could also be a fertility issue. I don't have enough calcium. We're not flocculating those clays. We're not making soil aggregate the way we need to. Then we're not building healthy soil. We're building a really healthy top inch and a half of soil, but the deeper soils are just not doing well. And I know that doing no-till practices, especially without tons and tons of compost, is going to take time. It's going to take years to really build up healthy soil to be really productive. But the truth of the matter is in a lot of ways, we don't have years. We need to be producing healthy, abundant crops now so that we can turn a profit. And that doesn't mean that we forsake our ideals, that we forsake our practices and our ideologies, but it just means that it's time to sort of pivot and to readjust the way that we're doing things. So I started to experiment. I had a couple of beds. I'm like, all right, we're gonna do a bed flip. You know what? Let's just till as far down as this walk behind tiller can go. Let's get, I don't know, 5, 6 inches deep. And when we incorporate the fertilizer, we'll do that. And then we'll just kind of see how things go. We'll do some A/B comparison. Had a bed of beets over here. Let's do a bed of beets over there. And let's just see if the tillage will give us a quicker return on our investment as far as yields go, or if it's not really going to change much of anything. And we're better off to just kind of stick with what we're doing and sort of ride out these tougher early years, or maybe think about doing more composting. And there's been a pretty dramatic response. The things that were done with our conventional no-till practices. That's funny. For me, it's conventional, the way that I've done it since the beginning of, broad forking a bed, fertilizing, and then doing a light tilth and then planting something right into it. Things are growing. Like I said, they start out really well, and then just as the season goes on, as the weeks go on, they just really start to struggle. And then in the beds that we're choosing to do like a full tillage pass on with some fertilizer, We're getting lots of amazing growth. One plant that I have said for 2 years now that, like, I just can't grow a good beet to save my life. I had 2 or 3 beds of beets that just really struggled. They were really tiny, they never sized up, the greens looked absolutely pitiful, and I had sort of almost just accepted the fact that for whatever reason, I don't know if it's me, if it's my soil, if it's varieties that I'm choosing, I just cannot grow a good beet to save my life. But some of my beds in one of my tunnels where I did that, we did like a full tillage pass with some more fertilizer and a little more compost and planted some beets. And my God, if those haven't been the absolute best beets I've grown in my life, huge, tall, perfect greens, nice, big, uniform, round, dark red beets. They have been the most perfect beets in the world. And I thought, well, maybe it's because it's just in a tunnel. Maybe it's the tunnel that's doing that. Maybe it's, that light diffusion. It's like the perfect watering that they're getting, not having to deal with the elements and the intensity of the sun. Maybe that's what it is. But let's do a bed of beets outside with our full tillage and do that. And honestly, there's not much of a difference between the beets that were inside and the beets that were outside with the tillage. Now, some of you guys, I can hear you saying it now, and I know it's true that tillage can do some momentary increase in production. You're sort of releasing carbon, you're incorporating oxygen into the soil, all of these sort of things, which is why I'm saying this is what we're doing for now. This doesn't mean this is what we're always going to be doing. So it could be that that's what most of our newfound growth and yield is coming from, is from just, whipping up more air into the soil, kind of releasing a lot of the carbon that's been stored up in there. But also, I think what is making a big difference is a year and a half of 2, 3, 4, 5 bed flips on some of these different beds, and applying compost and fertilizer every single time, but not really incorporating it in properly because we didn't balance our soils when we started. I think that that is also contributing a ton to this newfound yield. It's just we're getting the fertilizer into the root zone where it needs to be. We're getting the fertility where the plants are. And so I'm hoping that by doing that, we can maybe do this momentary instance of tillage where we're incorporating that into the soil, essentially rebalancing our soil. And then now moving forward, we'll be able to go back to our normal no-till practices. Because the truth of the matter is like dogma doesn't pay bills. Ideology doesn't increase profit margins. These are the things that we use to guide us and to lead us and to sort of be the jumping off point, or maybe it's the straight edge that we use to ensure that we stay on that straight and narrow path. But we need to be able to diverge from that slightly to ensure that we can build a business, because I could be the most committed to no-till that I absolutely could be, but if I can't produce high quality kale, high quality arugula, so on and so forth, then I won't be able to stay in business. And if I can't stay in business, it doesn't matter how good at committing to no-till I am. So we're really hoping that it will shift some things around. And with some of these beds that have gotten a nice, good tillage pass on them, we might start experimenting with kind of going back with the next bed flip, just doing a broad fork and doing that. And we'll kind of, I would say over the rest of this season, we'll probably do a little bit of both, a little bit of continuing some in no-till, doing some with a couple of tillage passes, doing some with one tillage pass and doing that, or cover cropping and then tilling it in. There's nobody that has sort of the formula that this is how you do it and this is how you don't do it. Like I said, dogma doesn't pay the bills. And so we're finding the method and the experiences and the context that work best for us. And which is why I'm even going into this whole explanation, is to simply just say that I am finding what works best for me on my soil, with my conditions, my situation, and with my needs. And yours might be the same. You might have been a tillage farmer and things are starting to shift and not look as good, and you're dealing with compaction, and maybe it's time to start experimenting with no-till. Or maybe you've been experimenting with no-till and it's time to really try and commit to it and see if you can make it work, or vice versa, or so on and so forth. Maybe that you put a ton of fertilizer in the soil and it's time to really start taking a look at maybe cutting back on some of those amendments that you're inputting in and start looking at things like cover crops and green manures and so on and so forth. There's 1,000 ways to do it, and there's 1,000 books that are going to tell you the right way to do it. And it's just up to you to sort of take in all that information, distill it down, use your intuition, use prayers if you need to, use your mind, and then just implement the necessary things that you need to do on your farm to be successful. Because at the end of the day, that's what matters. It doesn't matter, did you follow this person's method? Doesn't matter if you followed this person's method. It's, are you able to be a successful farmer? And obviously, success is way more than just the bottom line, but that is a big part of it. So we will continue with our tillage practice, our minimal tillage, our low till, our sacrosanct heretical practices that we're doing. And I will definitely be keeping you guys updated on the progress of these sort of experiments, these trials that we're doing, and seeing how things are changing. And to jump off of that sort of thing, the last thing I wanted to cover in this vlog episode, and I think in some ways it has been as a result of the lack of fertility in the soil, is that we are under siege by flea beetles right now. Pretty much every other pest, the caterpillars, the hornworms, the armyworms, so on and so forth, haven't really been much of a problem this year. If anything, it's been really surprising how little they are. Haven't really seen any cabbage moth worm or cabbage butterfly worm. Not really seeing any of those issues. Aphids have been next to none. No whiteflies yet, which we're not really in whitefly time of the year. Seeing some squash bugs and so on and so forth. No vine borers yet, but man, the flea beetles are just ravaging so much on the farm right now. And I can pretty much pinpoint it back to one single bed. One of our new beds inside our high tunnel, we planted out in Hackerite turnips. The most beautiful, perfect Hackerite turnips. Actually, it was a bed that had just been tilled because it was a brand new bed, for what that's worth. Beautiful, perfect Hackerite turnips. They were big, they were succulent. The greens were wonderful. Then we started noticing some holes. We started noticing some parts of it being eaten up a little bit. And frankly, just had so much going on this spring, so much going on, just trying to build out the farm even more, focus on things like the walk-in cooler, the projects that I shouldn't have been doing in the spring. And I made the mistake of thinking, nah, maybe it'll just go away. Maybe it's like some momentary damage and, we'll get them all harvested before we get them out of there. And then day by day, week by week, the problem just continued to progress until we frankly got to the point where we lost about half the bed. We only harvested about half of a 72-foot bed of Hackerite turnips. And so just to put that in perspective, that's 72 feet long with 5 rows. Hackerite turnip, like essentially like butt to butt, like shoulder to shoulder, all the way down. That's a lot of revenue. That was a lot of lost sales that we could have sold to restaurants that were buying 20, 25 pounds at a time. They were selling really well at the market when other people didn't have them. And frankly, we just got to the point where the pests were too much. The greens were getting hammered. We couldn't sell them with greens. We started topping them and selling them. And then the flea beetle larvae started sort of burrowing into the roots themselves. And we got to the point where, yeah, they were just no good. They weren't even able to be sold. And we had to essentially just like rip them all out and start over. But the biggest problem is that not only did I lose the crop, but I also created a flea beetle nursery. We created the perfect environment for these beetles to breed and reproduce and to lay eggs and to hatch and then so on and so forth. And then 2 beds over, collard greens started getting hammered. They started getting filled with holes. And then just outside the tunnel, a bed of perfect baby red mustard gets hammered and gets full of holes and gets eaten down to the ground. And then a bed of arugula gets hammered. And now I'm trying to sell arugula with holes in it and so on and so forth. And essentially what happened is we created the perfect environment to breed a horrible pest problem because I wasn't vigilant. I didn't stay on top of my pest management. That could have been handled on one bed. I mean, not to say that they weren't elsewhere, because we have flea beetles. It's a thing. It's part of the issue on our farm here. But the reality of it is I took our problem from being like a small problem to being a massive problem on the farm. And in all honesty, I think some of the problem could be the fact that our soils aren't balanced. We're struggling with getting fertility into the soil. So then we're not growing really robust, healthy plants. we're new on this property. The soil is pretty beat up. And so we're struggling to build healthy soil, to build healthy plants. I could come up with 1,000 different excuses for why, but the reality is like it happened. It is what it is. And now we're on our back foot having to sort of fight against it. And that means spraying. That means obviously we're using spinosad or spinosad, however you want to pronounce it. But we're having to do pretty consistent applications on the various things, the arugula, the mustard greens, and so on and so forth, just to try and like break that breeding cycle. Because now we've got them moving over to the eggplant, and even though they're not messing with the fruit yet, they're eating through the leaves, and it's just a matter of time. So we're just trying to be vigilant now where we should have been vigilant previously. So I would say there's been really three things that I wish I could have done better to avoid this mess in hindsight. One would be tackle the issue quickly, stay on top of the problem. It's not going to go away. Pest problems don't just magically go away. If you have them, they will find each other, they will breed, they will lay eggs, and so on and so forth. Now you can do things to break that cycle, but by just hoping that nature runs its course, not necessarily going to be the case. You need to be fostering the environment for things like predator species or for inhospitable environments, so on and so forth. And frankly, a backpack sprayer with spinosad probably could have maybe two applications would have probably dealt with the problem. But in my cheapness, in my lack of willing to spend money, in some ways, in my lack of available money to do it, we neglected to go ahead and buy more of the spinosad. We just used the last that we had from the year before. And we did like one quick pass, and that's all we had. And we're like, hope for the best, hope that does the trick. And what I should have done as soon as I run out, I should have ordered more. So we had it in place for when we needed it, even if we didn't need it. And we just sort of like drug our feet and we were focusing on other tasks and we let things get out of hand. And another thing is we tried to use other things. So when you run out of spinosad, then you start moving to other things like maybe pyrethrin or neem, or even if it's just like using soap and trying to create like some soap and vinegar with some essential oils, like you start getting creative. So then, like, not only can you not get to it quickly, but then you're also using the wrong tools for the job. I know it works on Flea Beetle, and all I had to do was buy it, and all I had to do is use it, and it would have dealt with the problem, and I didn't. And then also with that is it kind of sticks with the first one of not tackling it immediately. It's like I wasn't being vigilant. Sometimes I have a tendency as a person to, when I know there's a problem, it can be a lot easier to just avoid the problem instead of dealing with it, tackling it right away. And so what do? You're like, I'm not gonna go walk in the tunnel today. Like I know that those Hackerite turnips are just gonna really upset me because they're just hammered. And so I'm gonna just leave them there. I'm not gonna mess with them. In the back of your mind, you kind of hope like, and maybe in a few days it'll go away. But it wasn't. I wasn't vigilant. I wasn't keeping my eyes on things. So much so that when they started jumping to the other crops, by the time I caught it, it was already too late. We had lost an entire crop of red mustard. Actually had to like text the chef and be like, "Hey, sorry, I got to take that off the list this week because I just can't. I can't sell it to you. It's not good enough quality for me to take off the farm." And so, wasn't keeping my eyes on the things that I knew were problems. I wasn't sort of scouting out the potential next places that would be problems. And because of that, things just got out of control. And then once I would try to get onto it, maybe I would like, all right, I've got it. I got the right thing to spray. We're gonna do like a quick spray on the plants, and then we'll move on to the next thing. And not thinking about like, oh, and it's gonna rain this afternoon. So all that work, all that investment of what little bit of organic pest management that we had, just all got washed away because I didn't take 5 seconds to check the weather and see it's going to rain today, but it's not going to tomorrow. And so it's like you get distressed, you get frantic, and then you start making sloppy decisions, and it just makes the problem worse. So all that to be said, make sure that you guys are staying on top of the things that you need to do. Putting things off isn't really helping anybody. It's definitely not helping you. It might be helping the pest. It might be giving them a chance to to proliferate a little bit more, but stay vigilant. When there's problems, tackle them when you can. You know, I've heard it put before that it's like the best fertilizer is the farmer's footsteps. You being out there, even if you're like, I just looked at this broccolini yesterday, like just walk by it. Just stick your head into the plants, see what's going on in there. You know, keep an eye on the tomatoes, keep an eye on the soil. Make a regular habit of knowing what is happening in every square inch of your farm at all times. Not from a place of frantically stressing about it, but just knowing like this is your domain. This is the borders in which you have power and you have control. Obviously, we're partnering with the earth. You don't have absolute dominion over it, but you have authority, you have influence, and you need to make sure that you're wielding that well. And by abdicating that authority and that influence and just saying like, yeah, let it run its course, all you're doing is just opening up opportunities for failure. So exercise your authority, exercise your influence on your farm, and just be there every square inch of it as much as you can. Obviously, if you have hundreds of acres, it's a whole different animal. But we're on about 3/4 to an acre. I can pretty much walk that every day in some form or fashion and put my eyes on everything just to know where it's at. Yeah. So that's more or less sort of where things are at. So a lot of positives, some negatives, and at the end of the day, it's just a whole bunch of reality. I say this all the time, and I'll just say it again just to drive the point home that if this podcast does anything, I want it to be the most realistic snapshot of what it's like to run a small scale vegetable farm for those of you who are interested and those of you that are right there in the trenches with me. And so, for those of you who are down here in the trenches with me, cheers to you. We're in this together. And I know that we will all come out alive on the other side. And until then, we'll keep up the hard work. In the famous words of Diego Footer, be nice, be thankful, and do the work. And speaking of Diego, I would like to thank him and the team over at Modern Grower for making this show possible. None of it would be possible without you. So thank you so much for making the show a reality. And if you want to pick up any of the amazing tools over at Modern Grower, things like the Sumi Soaker, your Jang seeders, your paper pot transplanters, quick hoops, landscape fabric that's pre-cut with the holes so that you can plant into it as a weed barrier, shade cloth, microgreen seeds. It's endless what's over there, but it's a really well curated list of things that us market gardeners need. So go over to shop.moderngrower.com and check out all the amazing products over there. And when you buy from Modern Grower, it helps support us. It lets them know that we are sending you so that they know that this show is still worth it to, to help us keep it going. Speaking of helping us keep going, just a reminder that we believe in value for value. We never want to put this behind a paywall. We never want to make this sort of freemium content or a subscription. We want to make this free to the public, free to all the people that can learn and grow from the content that we're creating here at the Rookie Farmer Podcast. But if you find value in this, please consider kicking some of that value back our way in the form of a monetary donation. You can go to Cash App, Venmo, PayPal. You can send us $1, $5, $10, $100, whatever you feel like it's worth, and whatever reoccurrence you feel like you can do. Please consider donating to the show so we can upgrade equipment, we can keep things going. Maybe we can pay for a better interview broadcast recording service other than just Zoom because the video quality is kind of potato cam on this. Whatever it may be, we need your help and we need your support to make this show last for years and years and years. So please consider donating to the show. All right. That is vlog number 6 in the bag, episode 17 of the Rookie Farmer Podcast. Thank you guys all so much for listening. If you made it this far, you are the true patriots. You are the true believers. You are the true Americans. And as a fellow true American, not in the like patriotic sense, but just in the new girl true American sense. I am your host, Alec Smith, and you have been listening to the Rookie Farmer Podcast. And until next time, be blessed and peace.